Imagine for a moment that the version of yourself, the one living in perfect alignment, already exists, just waiting for you to tap into it. Sounds too good to be true, right? But what if the real reason you're feeling stuck, drained, or out of sync isn't because of your circumstances, but because you're not yet accessing this higher version of yourself? Think about it. You could be missing out on incredible strength, clarity, and resilience that's already within you, just hidden behind emotional clutter and everyday challenges. Ready to unlock the truth? The protagonist, like many of us, feels that deep restlessness when something in life seems out of sync. She's going through her days, handling the usual responsibilities, but there's a nagging sense that her energy is scattered. Emotionally, she feels disconnected, as if she's moving through life without truly being present. This internal turmoil is mirrored by external challenges, relationships, work, and the day-to-day grind pulling her in every direction. Her spirit feels weighed down, her emotional energy fragmented. It's as though she's trying to find her footing in shifting sand, constantly seeking something stable, something deeper. She knows there's more to life than just survival, but she's not quite sure how to tap into that higher sense of purpose. There's a quiet yearning inside of her, a call to align with something greater. In moments of reflection, she wonders why her energy feels so off balance. Could it be that her emotional state is blocking her from a deeper connection? As she contemplates, she starts to realize that perhaps her spiritual and emotional disconnection is tied to the way she's been navigating her internal world. Her thoughts, emotions, and energy aren't in harmony, and it's time to explore why. Sometimes, she catches glimpses of what life could be like if she were more connected, those fleeting moments of clarity where everything feels in sync. But they never last long. She often gets caught up in the noise of everyday life, losing sight of that inner peace. It's frustrating, like being on the verge of something profound but never fully arriving. She can feel her spirit calling out for more alignment, more clarity, more spiritual grounding. But how does one go about finding that? The answers aren't always obvious. Her energy feels depleted, her emotions in turmoil. She tries to meditate, to find a sense of calm, but her mind races with worries and doubts. Is there a way to balance her spiritual and emotional self, or is she destined to remain in this state of disconnection? Deep down, she knows that there's something powerful waiting for her if she can just learn how to tap into it. But first, she needs to understand why she feels so fragmented in the first place. It's a journey, not a quick fix, and she's only just beginning. She begins to explore different ways to reconnect with herself. Maybe the answers lie in ancient spiritual practices, or perhaps in modern mindfulness techniques. Either way, she's willing to try. She starts with small steps, setting aside time for daily reflection, practicing deep breathing to calm her restless mind, and paying attention to how her emotions are affecting her energy. She's learning that emotional energy is fluid, not static, and that maybe, just maybe, she has more control over it than she realized. As she continues her search for alignment, she encounters moments where she feels a glimmer of hope. Meditation starts to feel a little less forced, and there are brief instances of peace. These moments, however fleeting, remind her that she's on the right path. It's not about perfection, it's about progress. Each time she feels even a small sense of connection, her energy shifts ever so slightly, and she can sense that she's slowly moving towards something greater. But the journey is far from over. The challenges don't just disappear because she's on a spiritual quest. Life continues to throw obstacles in her path, work stress, difficult relationships, moments of self-doubt. But she's starting to see these not as barriers, but as opportunities for growth. Every emotional upheaval is a chance to realign her energy, to come back to herself. She's realizing that alignment isn't about avoiding challenges, but about facing them with clarity and resilience. And so, she presses on, knowing that the answers won't come all at once. There's a feeling inside her now, a knowing that this journey is necessary. Her energy, once so scattered, is beginning to find its way back. Slowly but surely, she's starting to feel the connection she's been longing for. But there's still more to discover, more to learn, and as she reflects on where she's come so far, she knows that the key to her alignment lies in something much deeper than just surface-level fixes. The protagonist, seeking clarity, stumbles upon an extraordinary revelation. Through deep meditation and moments of heightened awareness, she makes contact with a version of herself that operates on a much higher spiritual frequency. This parallel self is calm, grounded, and vibrates with a sense of inner peace that the protagonist has long been searching for. It's like meeting a wiser, more balanced version of herself, one that has mastered the art of emotional and spiritual alignment. This encounter sparks a curiosity within her, making her wonder how she can embody that same level of stability in her own life. As the connection deepens, her elevated self begins to share invaluable wisdom. She learns that true balance doesn't come from controlling external situations, but from mastering her internal world. It's all about how she handles her energy, her emotions, and her reactions to the unpredictable nature of life. This parallel version exudes a calm confidence, an unshakable sense of presence that the protagonist deeply admires. It's clear that this version of herself has discovered how to live in alignment, even when facing external pressures. The protagonist is eager to learn how to reach that state. The elevated version explains that everything starts with energy. It's not just about positive thinking or avoiding challenges, it's about maintaining a steady vibration, no matter what life throws your way. She emphasizes that this steady frequency is the foundation for both emotional and spiritual growth. It's a practice, not a destination. The protagonist begins to understand that her scattered energy is the root cause of her disconnection, and if she can learn to stabilize her energy, she can regain control over her emotions and her life. This parallel self offers practical guidance, showing the protagonist how to maintain harmony between her mind, body, and spirit. It's not about grand, dramatic changes, but small, consistent actions, like taking time each morning for mindful breathing, or using visualization techniques to anchor her energy throughout the day. These are practices that anyone can adopt, and they make a noticeable difference in how she feels. She starts to see that achieving balance is not as elusive as it once seemed. The more the protagonist learns from her elevated version, the more she realizes how out of sync her energy has been. She has been reacting to life, instead of responding with intention. Her emotional energy has been scattered, causing her to feel off balance. But now, with these new tools, she can start to bring herself back into alignment. This isn't a quick fix, it's a journey, but she's beginning to feel the shift. Her elevated self reminds her that this alignment is an ongoing practice, not a one-time achievement. With each interaction, the protagonist starts to feel more empowered. The elevated version helps her understand that she is not a victim of her emotions, but rather the master of them. This realization opens up a new way of seeing the world. She no longer feels at the mercy of her circumstances. Instead, she begins to take responsibility for how she manages her energy, learning that every emotional response is an opportunity to either drain or elevate her vibration. She is gaining tools to help her stay balanced, no matter what comes her way. As they continue to connect, the protagonist becomes more attuned to her own energy field. She can sense when her frequency is rising or falling, and she's learning to make adjustments in real time. It's not about suppressing emotions, but about allowing them to flow without losing her grounding. This awareness is empowering. She feels more centered, more in control of her internal world, and for the first time in a long time, there's a sense of peace. But this is only the beginning, there's still so much to explore about this newfound connection. The protagonist leaves each encounter with her elevated self feeling inspired and motivated to integrate these lessons into her daily life. She's beginning to see how the version of herself she's connecting with is simply a reflection of her highest potential. It's not someone separate, it's her, just in a higher state of alignment. This realization shifts her perspective, making her more determined than ever to continue raising her frequency and living in harmony with her spiritual self. The protagonist's understanding deepens as her elevated self explains that emotions are not just fleeting feelings, but powerful forms of energy. Instead of pushing them aside, she learns that they must be acknowledged and transformed. This perspective shifts how she sees her emotional responses, particularly those she once considered overwhelming, like anger or sadness. These emotions, though heavy, carry within them the potential for growth if channeled correctly. The protagonist starts to view them as opportunities rather than obstacles, realizing that every emotional wave has the capacity to elevate her if approached with intention. Her elevated self teaches that attempting to suppress or ignore emotions only causes them to fester, leading to energy blockages that can disrupt spiritual alignment. The protagonist begins to practice feeling her emotions fully without judgment, allowing them to move through her rather than getting stuck. This process isn't easy, but it's necessary for true emotional freedom. She's reminded that energy flows best when it's not resisted, and emotions are simply another form of that energy. Instead of seeing difficult emotions as setbacks, she's learning to transmute them into a source of strength. One example that stands out for her is how she used to react to frustration. Before, she would bottle it up, only for it to explode later in ways that were unproductive. Now, with this new understanding, she's able to take a step back and channel that frustration into something more constructive. Perhaps she'll go for a run, meditate, or write down her feelings, each action helping her release the emotional energy without allowing it to control her. This practice, while simple, is incredibly transformative for her emotional well-being. Her elevated self emphasizes that every emotion has a message. Fear, for example, isn't something to be avoided but understood. It often points to areas where growth is possible. The protagonist begins to see fear not as an enemy, but as a guide. Whenever fear arises, she asks herself, "What is this trying to teach me?" This shift in perspective allows her to embrace the emotion rather than run from it. By leaning into her emotional experience, she opens herself up to deeper levels of healing and self-awareness. As she continues this practice, she notices how her emotional energy becomes lighter, more fluid. The dense feelings that once weighed her down no longer have the same power over her. She's learning to ride the waves of her emotions, trusting that they will pass and leave her stronger for having faced them. This ability to transmute heavy emotions into lighter, more positive energy becomes one of her greatest strengths on her journey to spiritual alignment. Her emotional landscape, once chaotic, is now a place of intentional flow. In moments of stillness, she reflects on how far she's come. The lessons from her elevated self have helped her realize that emotions are simply energy in motion, and the key is to let them move through her rather than holding on to them. She's no longer afraid to face her feelings head-on. By allowing herself to feel deeply and authentically, she is discovering new layers of resilience. The emotional energy she once feared now fuels her growth, guiding her toward greater spiritual clarity. The protagonist starts to apply this understanding in her everyday life. When difficult emotions arise, instead of reacting impulsively, she pauses and reminds herself of the power she holds to transform that energy. Whether it's a challenging conversation, a stressful situation, or even a moment of doubt, she taps into her newfound ability to transmute dense emotions into lighter ones. This practice becomes a cornerstone of her emotional resilience, allowing her to navigate life's challenges with a sense of calm and empowerment. As she continues to master this skill, the protagonist feels a profound shift within herself. Emotions that once felt overwhelming now feel manageable. The ability to channel emotional energy into something constructive gives her a sense of inner peace she hadn't known before. But she knows this is only the beginning. There are still deeper layers of emotional and spiritual growth to explore, and her journey is far from over. The protagonist's next lesson from her elevated self centers around practical tools for building emotional strength. She learns that resilience isn't just about enduring hardships, but actively cultivating habits that strengthen her inner core. Her guide introduces her to spiritual practices specifically designed to anchor her energy during turbulent times. These techniques, such as daily meditation and grounding exercises, allow her to remain centered, no matter what emotional challenges arise. She realizes that resilience is a skill that must be nurtured, not something that happens passively. One of the most impactful practices she learns is meditation. It becomes more than just a way to relax, it's a tool for tuning into her own energy. By setting aside a few moments each day to quiet her mind and focus inward, she begins to notice a shift in her emotional state. The moments of stillness allow her to observe her thoughts without getting swept up in them. It's a subtle but powerful practice that helps her maintain equilibrium, even when life around her feels chaotic. She starts to see meditation as a way to reset her energy and keep her emotions from overwhelming her. Another technique she finds transformative is visualization. Her elevated self encourages her to use this practice to imagine herself in a state of perfect alignment. Whether she's visualizing herself standing strong in the face of adversity or picturing her energy flowing freely, this exercise helps her reinforce her inner strength. Visualization becomes a way for her to mentally rehearse resilience, making it easier to access in real life. When difficult situations arise, she can draw on these mental images to remind herself of her ability to stay grounded. Anchoring, a lesser-known but equally powerful practice, is another tool she adopts. By connecting her energy to something stable, whether it's through breathwork, physical grounding techniques, or focusing on her connection to the earth, she learns to stabilize herself in moments of emotional turbulence. This practice helps her feel more secure in her own energy field, especially during times when external circumstances feel out of control. The more she practices anchoring, the more resilient she feels, as if she's rooted in a deep well of inner strength that no external force can shake. Her elevated self also emphasizes the importance of consistency. Resilience isn't something that can be built overnight, it requires regular effort. The protagonist begins to incorporate these spiritual practices into her daily routine, recognizing that each day's efforts contribute to her long-term emotional strength. She learns that resilience is like a muscle, one that grows stronger the more it is used. Over time, these practices become second nature, providing her with a solid foundation to return to whenever life throws her off balance. As she applies these teachings, she notices a shift in how she handles challenges. Situations that once left her feeling drained or overwhelmed now feel more manageable. She doesn't crumble under pressure as easily as she once did. Instead, she approaches each obstacle with a sense of calm, knowing that she has the tools to maintain her inner peace. This newfound strength isn't about avoiding difficulties, but about facing them with grace and poise. The spiritual practices have given her the resilience she once thought was out of reach. Over time, she starts to experience the benefits of these practices in unexpected ways. Moments of stress that would normally leave her feeling anxious are now opportunities to practice her resilience. When tension arises at work or in her relationships, she turns to her meditation or grounding exercises to stay centered. She's no longer reactive, but thoughtful and composed, even in difficult situations. This ability to stay calm in the face of adversity becomes one of her greatest assets. As her resilience grows, so does her confidence in handling life's unpredictability. She begins to trust that no matter what happens, she has the inner strength to get through it. These practices have not only elevated her emotional resilience, but have also helped her align more fully with her spiritual path. She feels more connected to herself, more aware of her energy, and more capable of navigating life with grace. However, she knows there's still more to learn about applying these lessons in even greater challenges ahead. The next phase of the protagonist's journey introduces the practical application of the wisdom she's gained. Life's challenges continue, but now, she faces them from a place of spiritual awareness. Her elevated self encourages her to use the techniques she has learned to navigate these difficulties with a calm, centered mind. Rather than reacting impulsively, she takes a moment to ground herself, remembering the tools of meditation and energy alignment. She begins to approach each situation with a clear sense of purpose, no longer allowing her emotions to dictate her actions. Her newfound clarity helps her see obstacles in a different light. Where once she may have felt overwhelmed, she now views challenges as opportunities for growth. With her spiritual awareness heightened, she recognizes that every situation carries a lesson, and it's up to her to find it. Whether it's a disagreement at work or a moment of personal doubt, she steps back and evaluates the energy she's bringing into the situation. This shift in perspective allows her to maintain her balance, even in the face of adversity. One key insight she gains is the importance of acting from a place of higher consciousness. Her elevated self emphasizes that decisions made from fear or anger rarely lead to positive outcomes. Instead, she's encouraged to take a breath, center herself, and tap into her higher awareness before responding. This approach transforms how she deals with conflicts. Instead of escalating tension, she diffuses it by responding thoughtfully, with a focus on maintaining peace both within herself and with those around her. Her ability to act from a place of clarity, rather than emotional reaction, becomes her superpower. As she continues to practice this, she notices that her relationships begin to improve. The calm energy she brings to interactions has a ripple effect, influencing those around her. When faced with difficult conversations, she remains composed, using her spiritual awareness to guide her responses. This not only strengthens her connections with others, but also deepens her connection with herself. She realizes that by staying aligned with her inner peace, she can navigate even the most challenging situations with grace. Her elevated self reminds her that alignment is an ongoing process. It's not about reaching a state of perfection, but about continually returning to her center when life tries to throw her off course. Each challenge becomes a reminder to check in with herself, to ask, am I acting from a place of alignment, or am I reacting out of fear? This simple question helps her stay mindful, ensuring that her actions align with her higher self rather than her immediate emotions. Even when faced with major setbacks, the protagonist remains steadfast. She no longer sees failure as something to fear, but as an opportunity to recalibrate. Each obstacle is a chance to grow stronger in her spiritual practice. She uses her emotional awareness to gauge when she needs to step back, realign, and approach situations from a fresh perspective. This resilience, rooted in her spiritual awareness, gives her the strength to continue moving forward, no matter what challenges come her way. Her elevated self teaches that adversity often brings the greatest lessons. The protagonist starts to appreciate the growth that comes from facing difficulties head-on. It's not that life becomes easier, but her approach to life becomes more aligned with her spiritual values. She handles stress with greater ease, not because there's less of it, but because she's learned to manage her energy effectively. Every challenge becomes an opportunity to strengthen her emotional resilience and deepen her spiritual connection. As she reflects on how far she's come, the protagonist realizes that the lessons from her elevated self have profoundly changed the way she views her own life. Challenges no longer feel like insurmountable obstacles, but rather stepping stones on her path to growth. She knows there are still more tests ahead, but now, armed with the tools of spiritual awareness and emotional resilience, she feels ready to face them. As the protagonist continues her journey, she begins to experience a profound shift in her inner world. With each step, she feels a stronger connection to her higher self, the part of her that exists beyond the day-to-day struggles, operating from a place of spiritual wisdom. This version of herself embodies the peace, clarity, and strength that she has long sought. The teachings of her elevated self have brought her to a place where she can now integrate these lessons into her own life, creating a sense of unity between her physical and spiritual self. Her connection to the higher self becomes a guiding force. She starts to trust her intuition more, recognizing it as the voice of this deeper wisdom. No longer second-guessing her decisions, she feels more in tune with the flow of life. When faced with choices, she consults her inner guidance, asking, "What does my higher self say about this?" This shift in perspective gives her a sense of empowerment, knowing that she's making decisions from a place of alignment rather than fear or doubt. The unification with her spiritual self becomes her compass, guiding her through life with confidence. This sense of unification brings a new level of inner peace. The protagonist no longer feels torn between different aspects of herself. Her emotional and spiritual energy, once fragmented, is now aligned. She experiences a deep sense of wholeness, as though all the pieces of her life are finally coming together. This newfound harmony allows her to approach life with a greater sense of ease, knowing that she is supported by her higher self. Challenges no longer feel overwhelming because she knows she has access to a wellspring of wisdom within. Her daily practices, once tools for managing stress, have now become rituals that strengthen her connection to the higher self. Whether it's through meditation, visualization, or grounding techniques, each practice serves to deepen her spiritual alignment. These moments of stillness are no longer just about calming the mind, but about reconnecting with the part of her that transcends the physical world. The more she integrates these practices, the more she feels the presence of her higher self in every aspect of her life. One of the most powerful changes she notices is in her emotional resilience. With the guidance of her higher self, she is able to navigate difficult emotions with a sense of detachment, observing them without becoming overwhelmed. She understands that emotions are temporary, but her spiritual alignment is constant. This awareness allows her to process emotions without letting them disrupt her inner peace. It's a skill she has honed through her spiritual practice, and it becomes one of her greatest assets in maintaining balance. Her relationships also benefit from this unification. As she becomes more aligned with her higher self, she notices a shift in how she interacts with others. She no longer feels the need to engage in conflicts or prove herself to anyone. Instead, she responds with calmness and understanding, knowing that her worth is not dependent on external validation. This inner confidence, rooted in her spiritual alignment, transforms how she approaches her relationships, creating deeper connections with those around her. The protagonist's life begins to reflect this internal transformation. She attracts experiences and people that align with her higher vibration, reinforcing her sense of spiritual unity. Her external world becomes a mirror of her inner peace, as she moves through life with a sense of purpose and grace. The journey she's been on has not only changed how she views herself, but also how she navigates the world around her. This alignment with her higher self brings a sense of fulfillment she's never known before. As she reflects on her journey, the protagonist realizes that the unification with her higher self was the key to transforming her life. She feels a deep sense of gratitude for the lessons she has learned and the growth she has experienced. But she knows that this is not the end, it's a continuous process of deepening her connection to the spiritual part of herself. With each passing day, she becomes more attuned to the guidance of her higher self, knowing that this alignment will continue to lead her toward greater spiritual fulfillment. Now that you've learned these powerful lessons from your elevated version, the question is, what are you going to do with this knowledge? Are you ready to apply these practices and truly align yourself with your higher self? It's time to stop letting emotions control your life and start using them as a source of strength. How would your day look different if you approached every challenge with spiritual resilience? Take a moment to think about that. Your spiritual growth starts with one decision. Are you willing to make it? If you're ready for more, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you can continue your journey toward mastering these transformative teachings. If you've connected with the idea that your parallel self holds answers to your current struggles, then you won't want to miss this video. If you're seeing this, your parallel self has a message. Discover how your other self can offer guidance, clarity, and emotional balance in ways you've never imagined. Don't just wonder, find out what message is waiting for you and how it can transform your life today. Watch it now, and see how aligning with this higher version of yourself can lead to breakthroughs you didn't even know were possible.